I have to look on the bright side. Orville set up the media school at Fort Steilacoom College. He's got a tremendous knowledge in printing. He's an excellent editor. He takes people's miserable handwritten yellow pages and turns them into beautiful printed pages. He could even do that for you, Bill. He's shown me a little bit of what gets turned into him now and then. And then look at the final product. Beautiful. Well, anyway, I have great respect for Orville. Every time I take some material over there, I get the best education in the world of printing and copying and all. He's got a photo studio, he can copy anything, anyhow.
Where's the shop?
In his home.
I'm a retired person. It's not retired.
If you know the street called Wana, W-A-U-N-A, well, he's a yellow house just a little bit down from 104th. So he's pretty easy to find. Anyhow, it's been a great pleasure to know Orville, and he's usually vice president of Fort Steilacoom.
Secretary.
Secretary, okay. Puts out newsletters for various various societies, and I hope ours will be soon into a quarterly. So Orville, your voice might hold out.
Well, I hope so. I've been sipping on this water and refilling it every once in a while. You know, after you've had a sore throat and had a cold and nasal problems, all that comes together and you take a lot of water. Well, you're the subject of an experiment tonight. I'm trying to convert from the manual slide projector to an electronic medium using a computer and a video projector. I found that isn't all without problems. Tonight especially, as I was waiting, the computer went to sleep. And I had to reboot it and put the programs back in it. And I have been moving this mouse around every 5 minutes so it won't go back to sleep on
Just
me.
to keep it
Right.
blood circulating.
I'm here, I care. Yeah.
And I also find the slides don't change very fast if the slide has a lot of information or computer information on it. How many of you have ever been to Fort Steilacoom? Okay, so at least I see most of the hands up. Those who haven't, I think, will be in for a treat. We will be opening on the Labor Day weekend. We have a 3-day event going. We co-sponsor with the Washington Civil War Association, the Civil War reenactment. Have any of you been to that? Okay, that's tremendous. I'll tell you more about it later. But our museum opens then. Our problem, of course, is like with most museums, you don't have enough people to do the work. So the same few do it until they're worn out. And we never have enough docents, so we can only be open during part of the year, from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. And then only 2 hours in the afternoon on a Sunday. So you have to really watch it to catch us open, which is a little disconcerting sometimes. How many understand how Fort Steilacoom got started and how it relates to this area? Some of you, have you heard some of that history? All right, what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to introduce that history in a 5-minute video. And then after that, I'm going to tell you whatever became of Fort Steilacoom in various slides. Then we'll end up tonight talking about working together with other community organizations and other museums and some other kinds of projects that you might be interested in. I have to do a few low-tech things here. One is to take my scarf off the lens. I hope that projector's on and I don't see anything on there. I'm going to start it and we'll just Where's my button that says play here, and see if something comes on.
Leander Wallace, an American settler, had been killed by Indians at Fort Nisqually, prompting the United States government to send Captain Bennett Hill of the 1st Artillery to establish Fort Steilacoom on the site of the Heath Farm on August 24, 1849. Heath's house served as headquarters and the barns as barracks. Additional log buildings were immediately constructed, including 2 officers' quarters, a hospital, a storehouse, guardhouse, commissary, and bakehouse. Indians became increasingly agitated as the white settlers interrupted their semi-nomadic lifestyle with fenced fields, farms, and pastures, and took ownership of favorite camping, hunting, and fishing sites. In 1855, after the signing of the Medicine Creek Treaty relegating the Indians to reservations, this discontent reached a peak, and the Indians made attempts to drive out the unwanted white men. Indians struck at the White River settlement in King County, looting and burning the homes of 3 families and killing 9 people. Salatat, an Indian, rode through the Puyallup Valley warning the settlers of impending attack. Settlers scrambled to reach the safety of Fort Steilacoom. Some came on foot with scant clothing and no food. Some came with wagons piled high with household furniture, chicken coops, and other effects. Ezra Meeker of Puyallup described the scene at the fort. A sorry mess of women and children crying, some groups of men cursing and swearing, oxen and cows bellowing, sheep bleating, dogs howling, children lost from parents, wives from husbands, no order. In other words, the utmost disorder. Meanwhile, Captain Maloney's command was attacked north of the Puyallup River. There were casualties on both sides, with William Slaughter, commander of one of the detachments, being killed. Colonel Silas Casey, commanding 2 companies of the 9th Infantry, arrived in January 1856 to join the 4th Infantry at Fort Steilacoom. The decisive battle of the Indian War was fought in March near Connell's Prairie, where the previous year Benton Moses and Joseph Miles had been ambushed and killed on their way from Natchez Pass to Fort Steilacoom. The defeated Indians broke up into small bands after the battle. Some returned to the reservations, some fled across the mountains, and others, such as Leshai, leader of the Nisqually, went into hiding. Leshai, who was accused of murdering Miles and Moses, was apprehended after being betrayed by his nephew, Sluggia, and taken to the guardhouse at Fort Steilacoom to await trial. The soldiers, Ezra Meeker and Dr. Tolmay of Fort Nisqually and others, tried to prove that Leshai was innocent, but many settlers, including many in the town of Steilacoom, believed he was guilty. Jurors could not reach a decision, so a second trial was held in Olympia, and this time Leshai was sentenced to hang. On February 19, 1858, the Thurston County Sheriff and a small posse took Leshai to an oak grove between the fort and the Bird Mill to be hanged. Leshai made his peace with God and accepted his fate. He had taken a stand for his people. August B. Couch, as quartermaster, was responsible for the construction of the permanent frame buildings at Fort Steilacoom between 1857 and 1858. The officers' quarters were on the north, with the commanding officer's house and office in the center. Bachelor officers chose quarters by rank. A married officer of rank and his family had pleasant accommodations for the time. The chaplain's quarters and chapel was east of the parade ground. Protestant services were held here whenever a chaplain or an itinerant preacher was available. Father Rossi served the needs of the Roman Catholic soldiers. When the fort closed, the Catholic Church was moved to the town of Steilacoom.
Still there.
In general, life at the fort was fairly pleasant for officers. Couch wrote that there was plenty to eat and little to do. He enjoyed riding, hunting, and fishing, and was one of the first to climb Mount Rainier. Life for the enlisted man was not so pleasant. They lived in barracks, engaged in routine drill and duty, and created some rowdiness in the town and countryside in off hours. Probably the most exciting military event for them after the Indian War was when Captain George Pickett was sent to the San Juan Islands to protect an American settler during the Pig War with the British. The commissary, clothing room, and quartermaster storehouse served the basic needs of the soldiers. James Batchelder tended to their other needs in his sutler's store, items sold on credit, as the fort paymaster arrived only every 4 months. The ordnance was stored in a wooden magazine. Cannon and mountain howitzers were sheltered under the portico. There was an important relationship between the fort and the town of Steilacoom. Supplies for the fort came by ships which docked at the town. In turn, the fort was a benefit to the town, bringing in money, a medical doctor, and useful skills such as surveying, which Slaughter and Couch are known to have done for Balch and Chambers. Officers of the fort also helped establish the roads used by the military and the settlers. The election of Abraham Lincoln and events leading up to the Civil War diverted attention away from the fort's frontier mission. Officers such as Couch and soldiers were called east by the Union Army or went south to support their home states, leaving the fort to the local militia. At the end of the Civil War, it was decided that the fort was no longer useful for coastal defenses, and as Indian uprisings were no longer a concern, it should be abandoned. The flag was lowered for the last time at Fort Steilacoom on August the 22nd, 1868. For 19 years, the fort had served as the primary United States Army headquarters in the Puget Sound country. Now, it was part of history.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears here.
One quick clap.
This part I'm going to talk as best I can and try out this new experiment of changing slides with the computer. I find some of the slides don't change as fast as I would like. This is the last flag to fly at Fort Steilacoom. It's in our museum. It has, if you counted them, 37 stars, so you know how many states we had in 1868 when the fort was over. At the time the fort closed, the last commander was Captain Charles H. Pierce, and the fort was garrisoned by 4 officers and 124 men.